Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Maverick News Channel. Hello, Maverick family and new viewers, wherever you may be around the world. We have one of our military experts, Mike Pekarik, coming back on with us momentarily to bring us up to date tonight on what is happening, not just in Iran, but also in Ukraine, because there has been a lot going on over there and around the world with regard to Ukraine that we have been missing. So we're going to bring up to date on that. And yeah, we're going to look at Iran as well. There's all kinds of stuff happening tonight. We have this defection of Trump's national counterterrorism director. He has resigned, saying he can't support the war, so we'll highlight that. Oh, also, if we have a minute or two, we'll show you a video of police coming to the door of a Canadian woman who had some pretty harsh words for the Prime Minister. Some people say it's censorship. Police obviously seem to think it's potentially a safety issue. We'll show you what happened when we come back on the other side of this.
Maverick News isn't just a news outlet, it's a community of truth seekers. Your donation at freedomreporters.com fuels our mission to report the stories that mainstream media won't touch. Thank you, Maverick family.
All right, let's bring Mike in. Hello, Mike. Welcome back.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you for joining us tonight. We need you because there's been so much going on, both in Iran and in Ukraine. So, time for an update on both fronts, I think, tonight.
Well, where would you like to start?
Well, maybe just off the top, we can highlight what's going on with this defection from Trump's ranks here.
From the MAGA thing?
Yeah.
And this guy was, I didn't realize we were going to talk about this tonight, but I did read about it like just an hour ago.
What's his name? Tom Kent, I think his name.
Sounds right. He was the head of, if you guys remember, and you're old like me, if you remember that show 24, they had like this counterterrorism operations center. That idea for the TV show was based on the group that this guy led. Of course, it's TV and fantasy and all that kind of stuff, but it did have a counterpart in real life. So this guy was a MAGA extremist. He was a January 6th participant. He was as MAGA as they come, and he defected from the Trump administration over this thing in Iran.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got his name wrong. It's Joe Kent, by the way.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Well, and I hadn't heard of him until today. I had paid exactly zero attention to this person.
Yeah, I'd never heard of the guy before, but I guess he's
got a
politically.
Well, he had a relatively important position until he resigned. But I mean, he was working for Tulsi Gabbard, who's also a bit nutty, and that's putting it a little mildly. But nutty as a fruitcake is one of the kind ways to put Tulsi Gabbard. But
I think the significant thing is here, he seems to have, information, and then he's saying he can't support the war in Iran because, as far as he's concerned, there is no imminent threat to the United States. And here's the letter that he posted. So after much reflection, I have decided to resign from my position as director of the National Counterterrorism Center effective today. I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. I support the values and the foreign policies that you campaigned on in 2016, 2020, 2024, which you enacted in your first term until June of 2025. You understood that the wars in the Middle East were a trap that robbed America of the precious lives of our patriots and depleted the wealth and prosperity of our nation. And he goes on, the comments here about buckling to the pressure from Israel and his powerful American lobby, of course, speaks to a certain political group, certainly within the MAGA base itself, where we're seeing cracks form, and I think even to a lot of people over on the Democrat side who have views like that. A little bit surprising because I think he's been a very strong Trump loyalist. So I think it must have taken quite a bit to push him out like this.
Yeah, he was. He's a 20-year Air Force veteran. His wife was killed in Syria. She was also Army. Sorry, he was Army veteran, not Air Force. And he had a whole bunch of different positions. Let's see. Oh, and he was so MAGA that he was one of the persons that a lot of people, if you're not military, you might not understand. There was a guy named Eddie Gallagher who was, I believe, Navy SEAL, but he was some version of Special Forces. And he had been posing with an Afghani corpse. There was all sorts of war crimes, desecration of a corpse, picturing one, and like just all sorts of things that he just did wrong. And he was convicted of war crimes by an American military court-martial, and Trump ended up pardoning him. This Kent guy was one of the people that said, look, this guy didn't do anything wrong, which as a military person, I'm like, are you kidding me? Yeah, so he was, it's hard to get further right than this guy. It's more MAGA.
Yeah, and this shows, I think, too, that you're seeing a real split within the MAGA movement over this war in Iran, as we're seeing a big split, maybe not a huge split in America itself. I don't think there's much support overall for the war in America.
It's a little bit as you expect. The MAGA voters, the Republican voters, are relatively in support. I haven't seen a number in a while, but it's relatively strong. It's over 50. It's probably over 60. At one point, it was over 80% Republican voter support, but it's gone down since then. But overall, the American people do not support this war, and this includes people like me who have a real problem with Iran and counted Iran as an adversary, depending on how you define their attacks in the cyber realm or through proxies like the Houthis that were going after shipping in the Red Sea, Hezbollah, Hamas, and like I said, the online cyber warfare. Iran and Russia were two of the centers for cyber warfare against the United States. They would go after hospitals with ransomware and just they did all sorts of stuff. Try to go after our power grid. So I'm not a big fan of Iran. And when you're talking about religious extremists with nuclear weapons, as they potentially could do, and last summer they had succeeded in refining some of their uranium to weapons grade status, which has no, it's not useful in civilian power. So it was obvious they were going for weapons grade material. They didn't have enough for a bomb yet when we bombed them. They still don't have enough for a bomb. But you can see, even me, who's like, Iran's a bad guy. We need to make sure that we're taking care of this. I'm like, really? So there's a lot of people like me who are like, yeah, Iran's bad, but are you kidding me? So.
I want to ask you this. I've seen today more references to in Canada, they're not using the word sleeper cells, at least not today in this regard, but they're making reference to potentially 700 radicalized uh, Islamist Iranian agents in Canada
I don't know
who
where they got that number from, but
I don't. This is Melissa Lantsman, a member of Parliament, conservative, who highlighted this, and now, of course, it's being picked up on and amplified. But and I'm hearing similar kind of rhetoric on the U.S. side. A lot of this sleeper cell type stuff. I know that there are some radicalized people out there. We've definitely seen someone take some shots at the U.S. consulate in Toronto. We
there was
know, yeah,
a synagogue shooting recently by
right,
a former American military person that
yeah,
he had just gotten out of military jail, and he shot up a synagogue because one of his family members was killed by Israeli military action, I believe, in Lebanon, but I'm not positive of that.
I just wonder how do we gauge the scale of the threat? Because we're in a time of war. I fear we might be manipulated. We could easily be manipulated by a government, Canadian, U.S., foreign government, even when you start talking about these kinds of things, because it's very easy to get people scared with
Sure.
with talk like that, right?
Well, and I said on this before is that being scared is not the correct course of action for us or the people listening. I don't think that's ever the correct action to act from motivated by fear. I'm sorry, words are a problem evidently right now. But as far as the threat goes, I mean, by definition, it's hard to know. That's why I was wondering where she got that number from.
Yeah.
I mean, 700 sounds like an odd choice for number, oddly round, and even it's not 720. It's not like we're tracking 26 cells that each have like 5 people or whatever it is. So I don't know where she got that number from. If she's a member of parliament, maybe she saw some intelligence, but that would surprise me too, because she's probably not supposed to be talking about that.
Yeah.
That would be a secret briefing. At least it would be in America. Now, is the danger plausible? Yes. I don't think any of us that are not looking at the currently secret information know what any of those numbers are.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say that it's a possibility. And like I said, cyber attack would be one of their options. I don't know if you were able to play that video that I sent from Telegram. I believe I texted it to you, but don't quote me on that. But it was a quadcopter drone on fiber optic control that gave us all an aerial tour of the United States Embassy in Baghdad. Right. So this would be an Iranian proxy cell operating inside of Iraq, so outside of Iran. And later, a different quadcopter drone destroyed one of our anti-drone radars at that embassy. So that sort of threat is real, but it's hard to pin down a number. It's hard to pin down a threat. I would suggest that the longer this goes on, the more of a threat there will be, because people will have time to get organized. People will have time to get entrenched. They'll have time to get supplied. They'll have time to, scope out their targets and come up with a plan. So the longer this goes on, the more of a threat there would be.
Yeah, I'm just looking for that video. I think you emailed it to me. And I will. I think you did. Yeah, here it is. I've got it.
Yeah, I didn't. Okay.
I'll have to download it.
Gotcha.
Yes. Yeah.
If you're not a regular Telegram user. One of the things that's going on in Ukraine and Russia is that in addition to losing Starlink, Russia cut off Telegram for the military, but then they had to follow it up because military units were ignoring that because they use Telegram to communicate on the battlefield because it's more reliable than Russian communication systems. And there had to be an order military-wide in Russia to you will cease using Telegram. Which is unfortunate because one of the sources that open intelligence people have is telegram showing from the Russian side, not just from the Ukrainian side, so that you can get information from both ends of the battlefield and you can corroborate. And so, yeah, this is a quadcopter flying over the American embassy green zone, if anybody remembers that term. It's a big complex. This started in the shortly after the 2003 invasion. It didn't take us actually long to take over Baghdad, and then we set up this big area here. And yeah, this quadcopter's just flying over the buildings, like it was a Sunday jaunt. I don't see anybody on the rooftops. I don't see it's just there was nothing set up here. It's flying completely unopposed.
This is pretty scary.
Well, I see this kind of stuff out of Ukraine all the time.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's now being directed at Americans, it's putting people that I used to work with, people that I still know, in harm's way. Little bit of a personal stake in, why this happened and how it's being executed. Later, like I said, a different drone. I don't remember which rooftop it was on, but there was a Swedish-made 3D, highly sophisticated.
Oops, we lost you. Mike just disappeared off the landscape. There he is. He's back. And
just
there you are
through the streets. Yeah.
Yeah. We lost you there for a minute.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, this highlights the vulnerability that a lot of countries have right now to drones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things that I'm saying is that I've been watching and participating in the development of both attack drones and defense against enemy drones. There's a group international group of engineers, veterans, and pilots working on Ukrainian drone tech. And I didn't see any of the anti-drone tech going on in that embassy. I didn't see any indication that they had been paying attention at all. And a bit more than 2 weeks into this attack in Iran, I didn't see any defensive measures set up. I didn't see nets. I didn't see chains. I didn't see jamming equipment. I was told this was a fiber optic drone, but that's hard to determine from that actual video. Mm-hmm. The video quality was very good, but if the drone operator was close, then the video quality just on the radio frequency can be pretty good.
And isn't it amazing how suddenly Ukraine becomes much more important to other countries because of drone technology?
They've been living it. And if I don't know how many veterans you have in your audience, but if you're used to even the post 9/11 weapons cycle, where you are the innovation cycle for weapons and defense, you might be on a 6 to 18 month cycle where things flip over, where you see a threat and then you gradually adapt to the threat, and then the enemy comes up with a new threat, or you come up with a new threat and the enemy adapts. It goes both ways. The innovation cycle in Ukraine can be as short as 3 weeks, which is insane. At the start of the war, every government military has this, where the government has a process to certify a certain type of weapon system is fit for use in the military. And in the United States right now, that takes several years. It depends on the weapon, but you got to put it through testing. You got to evaluate the data. You got to tinker with the weapon, put it through testing again. And this is after all of the competition, where you've got 2 or 3 weapon systems that compete against it. So it's a drawn out process. It can be 2 years, it can be 5 years, it can be 10 years, depending on the weapon system. But Ukraine dropped their certification process from 18 months down to 6 months, and then down to 3 months. And you can see how even 3 months is just insanely fast from the American perspective, but it's still more than 3 weeks. Now, 3 months is still effective because 3 weeks isn't always what's going to go on. And you talk to the people there and they're like, yeah, sometimes it's 3 weeks, sometimes it's 6 months. It just depends on what's going on. But still, the Ukraine has had 4 years of a 3-week iterative innovation cycle going on. in the drone warfare area, and I can't do the head math. I can't wrap my head around math around between 3 weeks and 6 months how many generations have we gone through. At least 4, obviously, if they're 6 months. At least 8 if they're 6 months over 4 years. So they've got all this tech. They've got, so that drone that we saw, you could see the little rotors in front, and it had 2 behind the camera. It's a quadcopter. They've innovated quadcopters, and they're 10-inch rotor blades on each quad. $1,000 quadcopter, $800 on cheap end. They've adapted that into something that has better targeting system that can go after Shahed drones. You're talking about a $1,200 drone that's been adapted to go after Shaheds. Military spending, this is bargain basement munitions in terms of price. And the Trump administration is like, no, we don't need those. Now the Kuwaitis and the Qataris and the Saudis and the Omanis, all of those people are like, yeah, Kuwait, come here, give us your military advisors, bring some of these down. We're going to start spending money on this. So at least somebody's paying attention, but evidently not the USA under Trump.
Yeah. You're seeing other countries looking to purchase drones from Ukraine. It looks like it's potentially going to turn into a source of revenue.
They've got the expertise right now. Poland decided to do that more than a year ago, almost 2 years ago. Poland's been highly supportive of Ukraine. They just handed over the last of their MiG-29s to Ukraine. That part of that was in exchange for some drone tech.
Yeah, and then we've seen too, I understand Trump, there are reports Trump spoke to Zelensky and asked for help. Or was it more a situation where Zelensky just offered help up front? I don't know which. But either way,
Zelensky probably offered the help because Iran has been an enemy of Ukraine. So when you were talking about Iran was talking about we've been attacked, and anybody that's been supporting these attacks by America is now our enemy. By Iran's own measure, Iran has declared war on Ukraine, and Ukraine would be within its rights to attack Iran by Iran's own reasoning. So I've been watching Iran feed Russia drone tech and all sorts of other helping Russia sell oil, all sorts of things that Iran's been helping Russia do. So I'm pretty sure Zelensky just plain offered it and said, Iran's our enemy too, we'll help.
And I guess it's an opportunity to try to shore up some support from the U.S. and even other countries, but especially the U.S. by saying, we'll help you with this, but maybe you could provide a little more help over here.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of other stuff wrapped up in that, but yeah.
And speaking of drones, this is the headline tonight. Ukraine war latest. Ukraine targets Moscow with drones for 4th consecutive day. I understand Moscow has been hammered pretty hard with these attacks.
The Ukrainians continue their... They started at least in January of 2024, so whatever that makes that, a bit more than 2 years right now, going deep inside of Russia with long-range drones in a coordinated campaign. Their main targets remain Russia's oil industry, but they've recently gone after other things. So like drone factories, Russia has been building Shahed-type drones. They've gone after communication systems. Just today, they went after a Russian military training base, because one of the unique things in 2026 here is that at least January and February, Russia lost more troops on the battlefield than they were able to train, which means that the size of the Russian military is actually decreasing right now for the first time in this war, since the very beginning. But they're going after the training base to either interrupt training so that the troops that actually make it to the front line are even less well trained than they are right now, or even eliminate them long before they even get to the front lines. So, in terms of Moscow, they've been going after it because the vast majority of people and economic activity is in Moscow and St. Petersburg. And going after Moscow, shutting down the airport, interrupting traffic, interrupting power in some cases, is effective. Just as an aside, approximately 1/3 of the air defenses protecting Moscow right now are not actually protecting Moscow. They are protecting Vladimir Putin's house just outside of Moscow. And that's fully 1/3 of the air defenses are just on one house.
Yeah, and the thing is, I don't think Vladimir Putin or the Russians ever expected that they would have these attacks
Sure.
happening on Russian soil.
And this is one of the reasons why I say that the longer this goes on, the more of a danger this is. From Iran on the United States. I'm actually not sure what this picture is.
This is actually old stuff, but it's inside Russia from, I couldn't find anything from the current attacks. At least I haven't so far, because I think there's a lot of censorship in play right now.
Sure. Well, like
And
so Russia has shut down, they're trying to shut down Telegram in the civilian sector, because, like you said, it was getting stuff out of the nation. They've got what they call a whitelist now of authorized websites Russian citizens are allowed to go to.
yeah,
They're trying to replace Telegram with a Russian-created version of a social media app, which, of course, the government can monitor. There's no encrypted, there's no protected anything there. And this is on top of the older concepts with, man, it's been a while since we talked to, I think Kevin was his name.
Michalici. Yeah.
Yeah. But one of the things that Russians fear the most are other Russians, because we have, in the United States, we have 911. You call 911. That's the emergency phone number that you call for police or paramedics or whatever you need. I don't know if it's the same in Canada or not. But in Russia, they have a direct FSB line that's like 111 or whatever it is. And it's Russians reporting other Russians for anti-government behavior. So one of the most feared things for any Russian citizen is their fellow citizens. There's just it's a mess inside of Russia right now. But yeah, I think Moscow's been attacked for 4 days. At least some of those days were constant 24-hour attacks. And we're not talking small things. We're not talking that 10-inch quadcopter, because those don't have the range.
Yeah. Here, I want to highlight this clip here too from Zelensky from a few days ago, talking about Russia providing targeting information to Iran.
Do you have intelligence or any information about this report that the Russians are providing Iran with intelligence, specifically providing Iran with intelligence on where American troops are, where American assets are, so that the Iranians can strike and kill Americans?
First of all, Russia gave drones already, these Shaheeds. They are using Iranian licenses, that they built and produced a lot of drones. They gave them. I have 100% facts that that Iranian regime used against American bases and against our Middle East, and Middle East neighbors of Iran. They used these drones. We saw intelligence shared with us some details, and it was Russian details in these Iranian drones. This is the first. And the second point is my intelligence told me next that they think that they share information, intelligence with Iranian regime. They help them. And also, my intelligence told me that they said if Europe and the United States can help Ukraine with intelligence in this war, it means that Russia can help Iranian regime. This is their point of view on this. So it's a fact, and you see that it's not a big secret.
When Trump was asked about this, he seemed to just let it roll off. Like he didn't seem terribly concerned about it. He said, well, I guess they think that we're supplying intelligence to Ukraine, but I think it's a little bit different from one side to the other.
You wouldn't believe how furious American service members and veterans are over Trump blowing that one off. Earlier, we had Steve Witkoff saying, "Oh, Putin told me they're not sharing intelligence, and I'm taking him at his word." Which I'm like, "Are you joking right now?" And no, he's not. But that's the state of Trump world. And no, I'm not happy about that from a military point of view.
Yeah, especially with a growing number of casualties, and I think we're up to is it
200
13?
or more.
Yeah, and 13 deaths, I think.
13 sounds right because there were 6 on that tanker, and there were 13 sounds right.
Yeah, and I was just speaking to you briefly about what happened with that base in Kuwait where 6 people were killed. I just want your thoughts on this because 30 miles away from where the U.S. service members were killed by that drone strike in Kuwait from Iran, there was, I think they call it, well, we refer to it, I think, as Camp Canada, but I think it's more than that. It's been turned into this political thing here, and as someone with military expertise, does it not, to me, because no one was injured, no one was killed, the less said the better for operational security reasons. Why convey information you don't need to convey if you don't need to notify families? Basically, I think a couple of storage buildings were struck by drones, and I think the Canadian personnel were in a bunker at the time taking shelter. So yeah, there was a drone strike there. Some conservative politicians here and some others trying to wrap that up into a big political issue, saying that the prime minister is hiding something because there was no real mention of it. But I don't think, maybe I'm in the minority maybe, but to me here in Canada, I'm like, I think that maybe the wise thing is to just let it slide. Don't talk about it. You don't need to let the enemy know what your position is, how many people you have there, or even that there are any Canadians at that base at all. You just don't need to talk about it. And if you really want to enter the war, that's a great way to sort of dip your toe into the water, if you understand what I mean. Just let it go. Otherwise, it turns into a political thing. And people are like, well, we have to respond. We have to attack. I think there was just, in my view, wisdom there from the Department of Defense. And because we don't have, our prime minister is not a commander in chief the way that the president is. There's a different protocol that would be followed in a situation like this, especially when we're not formally at war. So just from a strategic point of view, am I off base?
No. So part of the thing is I'm aware of where that is. I've been there. It's at a place called Ali Al Salim, which is an American air base, but it hosts other NATO nations. It goes all the way back to the post 9/11 world because it was one of the main routes into Afghanistan in the fall of 2001. The United States and NATO, for that matter, have had bases inside of Kuwait. It might actually go back all the way to 1991, because I do remember as I was going from the airfield to the temporary billeting that I was at that base for a couple of days, I drove past some of the old Iraqi supposedly hardened bomb-proof aircraft shelters that France had built for them that were not bomb-proof. They were completely destroyed and they were still sitting there. but it's an American NATO base. It happens to host Canadians. There's not that many Canadians there. There's a lot more Canadians at Al Udeid in Qatar, but it's just not that big of a Canadian presence, and it's not even a Canadian base. So it strikes me as a nothing burger that everybody, including the people griping about it, have bigger fish right now. And I don't see the point. Now, as far as sharing information, there's not a whole lot secret about Ali Salim. It's been there for a while. But you're right. I mean, if there's nothing that actually got damaged, why are you talking about it? Everything's minor. Everything's okay. It's certainly, if I was deployed and something like that happened, if I was calling home, I wouldn't talk about it because it's not worth talking about. It's not much.
Yeah. Well, that has been my view on it, but we'll see where the politics lands on this. I think it's quieted down a little bit today.
I think they're just trying to make political hay. I think militarily it's nothing.
Here's a Truth Social post from...
Of course there is.
Trump tonight. You maybe have seen this. I'm surprised he isn't posting more tonight.
Well, he is getting older. Maybe he's tired.
Could be. Sleepy Donald Trump.
Dozy Don is what they're calling him.
Yes. So this one, I think, it's been making the rounds for a little while now. Today, the United States has been informed by most of our NATO allies that they don't want to get involved with our military operation against the terrorist regime of Iran in the Middle East. This despite the fact that almost every country strongly agreed with what we are doing and that Iran cannot in any way, shape, or form be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. I am not surprised by their action, however, because I always considered NATO, where we spend hundreds of billions of dollars per year protecting these same countries, I think he said trillions in a clip earlier today with regard to this, to be a one-way street. We will protect them. He can't keep his numbers straight. But they will do nothing for us, in particular in a time of need. Fortunately, we have decimated Iran's military. Their navy is gone. Their air force is gone. Their anti-aircraft and radar is gone. And perhaps most importantly, their leaders at virtually every level are gone, never to threaten us, our Middle Eastern allies, or the world again. Because of the fact that we have had such military success, we no longer need or desire the NATO countries' assistance. We never did, all caps. Likewise, Japan, Australia, or South Korea. In fact, speaking as President of the United States of America, by far the most powerful country anywhere in the world, all caps, we do not need the help of anyone! Exclamation point. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Trump.
Yeah, aside from the signs of mental instability in that, the internal incoherence. So it's we won, we're the most powerful, we've decimated all of these things, but really it's a problem and we need your help. I mean, just it's jarring because it's all inside of this same post. And so it's like, do you need our help or not? But one of the problems with this, we were talking about this earlier, that, and I mentioned this whenever I was on the first time after the attack, was I have every faith in my brothers and sisters in uniform to perform excellently and professionally at a tactical and operational level. And that has been borne out. They've done brilliantly. But I have no faith in the civilian leadership of the military to perform well at a strategic level. And I don't know, again, how many veterans you have in your audience, but tactical and operational, or the airplane flying off of the carrier, go do its thing, is tactical. Operational is, okay, we're picking our targets and all that kind of stuff, and this is the step we're in now, and we need to accomplish this before we get to that. That's operational. But strategic is, are we talking to our allies? How are we coordinated between us and the Kuwaitis and the Qataris and the Brits and the Canadians? It's just a complete mess on the strategic level, because no one was consulted. For as far as I can tell, no one was consulted before this went off. except in the most general ways, like we're thinking about doing this sometime in the future, which wasn't news. But before this, between the tariffs that happened a year ago and, ongoing since then, and the garbage about Canada being the 51st state, which is just astonishing historically, or we need to take over Greenland and we're going to use our military if we have to, which is insane. And even in Trump's first term, he was going after Germany and he wanted to withdraw American troops out of Germany, which they've been there since World War II. And it's just the abuse of friendships and alliances, and what when you're talking about the strategic level, you've got hard power, which is of course your military, and then economic power, because the United States economy is so big, you can use your economic power as a hard power. But you also have something called soft power, where other people want to be your friend. They're the United States, that's somebody that we want to be on the side of the United States. But Trump has done systematically over the last year, destroyed or severely damaged America's soft power, because how many Canadians are like, yeah, we'll go help the United States because we trust them? I mean, how often is that currently said in any NATO nation right now? There's probably a few that are like, okay, we'll help if we can, but all of the damage that Trump has done. And then, of course, he's like, I demand you send ships. They're like, why? So there's multiple levels to that too. So if you're not talking to your allies beforehand and coordinating with them, they can't prepare. And if you're talking about, you want ships in the Straits of Hormuz, escorting tankers, searching for and taking care of any Iranian mines that might be there, shooting down drones, whatever they're going to do in the Straits of Hormuz, they can't just appear by, snapping your fingers. That doesn't happen. A ship probably is on duty somewhere, probably doing a NATO mission, probably countering Russia at this point, or keeping the sea lanes open, going after pirates, which are still operating off of Somalia. There's any number of things that NATO ships are probably currently doing that are important that they need to keep doing. The ships in port are going under maintenance. The crews are either resting after coming back home, or they're training for their next deployment. You can't just send them. One example in the United States Navy is the carrier George H.W. Bush had just finished a maintenance period and is currently trying to figure out if the maintenance period fixed everything. They're at sea testing out all the systems and getting their crew trained up. They weren't ready to deploy, so we had to send the Ford over to help Iran. The Ford has been at sea since June of 2025. And normally they're only at sea for 6 to 7 months. So it's well past its return to port date. And even the United States couldn't just send a carrier because it wasn't ready to send yet. So when you're asking other NATO nations to send ships, they probably don't have any ready to send right now. And if you had been coordinating starting maybe in December or January, they might have been able to send a few. But right now, even if they agreed to send a ship, it might not get there until April or May, just because of how this stuff works. If nothing else, it's like from Canada or Europe, it would take them a week or two just to get there. So even if they left now, they might not be there until April. So it's just the whole thing about send ships was insane. Now, India and Pakistan have appeared to have sent ships because those nations rely heavily on Gulf oil. And India especially has been experiencing some economic hardships, going to four-day work weeks and shortened work days to cut down on fuel consumption. And India is actually having some serious economic problems from the oil problem, the oil delivery problem.
Well, we see the price of oil continue to climb, and it's been bobbing around $100 a barrel, sometimes above.
I saw it as
And
high as 106 one day, a little bit
yeah.
over 106 a few pennies.
And who benefits most from that?
Well, the people selling oil do.
Yeah.
But one of the ironies of this is that while going after Iran harmed Russia in many ways because it cut off a lot of the help that Iran could have given Russia and had been giving Russia, it's also benefiting Russia because I've said more than once that significant portions of Russia's economy are funded by oil revenues. And if all of a sudden the oil shoots up to over $100 a barrel, people might want to start buying Russian oil again, and they are. And not only that, Trump eased sanctions, allowing Russia to sell oil again that had previously been forbidden by the United States. Now, the rest of Europe is saying, wait a hot minute. So that still might be under question, but still, Russia's benefiting a great deal, up to $10 billion a month, great deal.
Yes.
It's a lot of cash, especially in Russia. And it's been a long time since I talked about purchasing power. Things like the Big Mac Index, where the cost of something is different in very many countries, where the United States and Canada, the cost will be very similar. But in Russia, things that cost us, $2 here might only cost them the equivalent of $1 or even 75 cents in Russia. It's that big that it's 50% or even less of what it would cost us. So $10 billion a month is some serious cash for Russia.
Yeah. You can buy a lot of drones.
A lot of drones, a lot of fuel. You can pour money into your weapons manufacturing plants. All sorts of things that they can buy with that. They can buy Western electronics components on the black market to build more missiles. All sorts of things they can do.
And so much has changed so quickly with Trump being re-elected. Here in Canada, you sense it now when you're listening to the politicians. The defense minister speaking just yesterday about opening a spaceport in Canada, in Nova Scotia. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Wouldn't surprise me. Yeah.
So
a far north launch site would actually, there's different orbits that are, sorry, I'm nerding out on you. There's different orbits that are accessible by different launching locations. Yeah. And the circumpolar orbits, a northern location would be perfect for that.
Yeah. And I guess we're launching some of our own satellites. We're going to be doing that very shortly.
Mm-hmm. More nations are going to be doing that.
Yes. And when you're listening to the defense minister speak, he said, the threat climate has changed. When asked a question by a reporter yesterday, I know what he's saying. He's just not saying it out loud.
We can't rely on the Americans anymore.
Right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Well,
it's not just Russia anymore. It's more than that.
When Biden won in 2020 and started repairing a lot of the damage from Trump's first term, and, in hindsight, Trump's first term was sane compared to what's going on right now. Mm-hmm. But then when the United States reelected Trump, all of a sudden America was like, we thought you had taken care of this in the 2020 election. Turns out we were wrong. And something is seriously wrong with America. So even when Trump leaves office, it's going to take some serious work and many years to prove to the world and to our allies that we're worth it again.
Yeah. Over the weekend, there was also a meeting of Arctic nations, Denmark, Iceland, Canada, etc. They were engaged in a training exercise up there. They also were discussing these issues, news conference, and again, they're walking on eggshells when they're talking about security threats to the United States. Like, they never mentioned the words United States, USA, Donald Trump never came out of their mouths, but you knew what they were kind of saying, right?
And it's similar with some speeches. Barack Obama has said stuff, never mentioned Trump by name. It's obvious what he was talking about. At the Oscars, was it Craig Kilborn? No, who was it? Redheaded guy. But yeah, he did the same thing. Conan. It was Conan O'Brien, yeah. But it's the same thing. Now, I did send you, this is something that should maybe give us hope. Earlier was the first email that I sent was Trump's popularity.
Sure.
I don't remember what I posted that sent you that as.
I have it here.
What Americans think of Trump.
Well, it depends on who you're talking to. Some people are still
Sure, but
all in. Others,
it's a
not so
rule of
much.
thumb that you can get 20 to 30% of people to believe in anything. So, so if it's not significantly higher than like 30-35%, then it's a very low number. Can you zoom in on that?
Yeah.
And you can see that this is really going down. And one of the things that we were looking for is most of the time American presidents get a bump from the war. And you can see it a little bit there, that there was a little bit of an increase a week or so ago, but it was not significant. This is from Nate Silver. For people that don't know, Nate Silver is a statistician. So he's mathematics specializing in statistics. For a while, he had a website associated with ABC, but before that, he was independent, and he's independent again. So what he does is he gathers all of the legit polls. So if there's a poll that comes out from a group that calls itself Trump is the best person on the planet, that's not a poll that he's going to be paying much attention to. Mm-hmm. But he studies the way they do their stuff, the way they treat the statistics. He gives them a certain grade and a weight. The other picture that I sent, you can see a little bit of an insight on how he does what he's doing. He's got the sample size. He's got the influence, which is weighted for recency and quality of poll. The little things right after the sample size, LV is likely voters, A is A, all voters, R are registered voters. So, and then you can do the approval, and he's got a button up top, which I did not send you a different picture, but you can look at. He has something where all of these polls have had a certain bias in the past, where what they're reporting versus what elections actually produce. How far off are they? And so the adjusted results will show the historical error that they've had compared to actual elections. But you can see all of these are anti-Trump. Even so, one of these Rasmussen reports, which is the third one down, is almost always heavily weighted towards Trump. That does not look happy for Trump when a Trump friendly poll is that bad.
This should be of extreme concern to
any
Trump
any Republican.
Yes, because if you go to war, it's always most popular in the beginning, and that's when you get that outpouring of patriotism, national pride, support for the war effort. As the longer it goes on, generally the less support there is because of casualties and fatigue and concerns and the sacrifices made on the home front through things like gas prices, right? So what's your assessment of this? Does this war have legs or not?
Well, like I said about the fact that it was obvious that Trump didn't consult the allies. People were not involved in the planning process. He didn't even ask him to help at the start. It was just Israel and the United States. Caught Gulf states by surprise, caught the United Kingdom by surprise. There was some stuff early on where the UK and Spain were denying use of their the American bases on their soil. Switzerland closed their airspace to American military flights. Just all sorts of that kind of thing going on. He didn't do that with the American people either. He didn't say, look, we're going to have to go to war with Iran again. He didn't do any of that prep work. And so Americans are like, wait, what? And you've got veterans like me. I served 2001 through 2023. So all of the post 9/11 era. I've been to a lot of these places. And we're like, really? We're back there again? And one of the things that people like me are concerned about are, okay, we went into Afghanistan, and after 20 years, we took Afghanistan from the Taliban, and then Trump gave it back to the Taliban. So what was our blood and toil and all of those years away from our family for? So there's a lot of veterans going, what are you doing? And Iraq was the same thing. We went in on the cheap. We didn't do it right. Iraq is more of a success story in that they've had a more or less stable government with mostly free elections, and they've had several peaceful transfers of power based on the more or less free elections. So Iraq is more of a success story now than I had given it credit for 10 years ago. But still, it took a long time for Iraq to, pull itself up out of the sand and become at least moderately coherent as a nation again. And now we're doing it again, and so there's a lot of Americans that are just tired. We're like, what are we doing?
Indeed.
One of the things I would like to point out from an American being tired aspect is I did, it would have been pictures on the helpfully titled Iran stuff email.
Okay.
This is the tanker. So I've said before on your program that one of the things about military people doing their job, it's not an easy job. It never is. You're much more restricted in terms of the laws that you have to conform to. You're under orders. Your life is not your own. At any point, at any day, you could go ordered to halfway around the world. And then if you do not this one, next one, if you do everything right, then next one, next one. We'll get there eventually. There we go. There should be one with an intact tanker. Next one.
That's as far as we go.
I'm sure I sent it to you. Well, let me make sure that I sent it to you. If you do everything right, then hopefully either nobody dies or the right people die. And it can be that stark. I just sent it to you.
Okay.
And sometimes if you do everything right, the wrong people die. So in this case, you can compare the picture that you've got right there. It's an American aerial refueling tanker to the one that you're about to pull up.
Okay. Get that up. Hang on.
I don't know how many people heard about this, but out of the 13 American service members what the American military, we call it paying the ultimate sacrifice. This is what the tanker is supposed to look like. It's refueling or about to refuel an F-16. You can see that it's intact and happy. There were 2 of these tankers flying over Iraq doing what they do. They were topping off jets with fuel. And then go back to that other picture. One of them didn't make it and crashed in a fireball, killing 6 American airmen. This one is the one of the 2 that survived, but if you zoom in on the tail there, you can see where it collided with the other plane. And
I think you have
this
close up there.
Yeah, this jet was lucky to make it home. So you had 6 die, but then you had another group of people in this jet that came within a hair's breadth. And military life is not easy, even during peacetime. Americans die in training accidents all the time in the military. That's just, you do difficult, complicated stuff that is usually dangerous. And that means that sometimes mistakes happen and bad things happen. And this is an example. These people would have never been in this situation. if this hadn't happened. So it's just one of those things that Trump didn't prepare the American people, but he's asking American service members to put their lives on the line again. And him being so cavalier about Russia targeting American service members is just, it's a gut punch to the military people that are under his command.
And these are the concerns we have about escalation.
Said that we are nowhere near sending ground troops to the Middle East. Or we still
I
have
don't talk to
situation.
people like you about that. I mean, why would I tell you I'm sending or not sending? I don't talk about
Do you have-
military strategy. Who would talk about it? I mean, who would answer a question like that?
Do you have a comment on this? Said that we are
Ground troops.
Yeah. So one of the other
Thoughts?
ones that I sent was one of the maps of Iran, and it should.
Okay.
Should be the only map of Iran I sent. The Persian Gulf, anyway. This is showing American. It doesn't matter, whatever map you've got. So you're talking about ground troops, and that's the thing, is that historically, this is Ukraine.
Sorry.
Historically, the Air Force has rarely won a war. The only one that you can maybe claim was over the former Yugoslavia in the 1990s, where we were able to achieve a surrender and some version of peace through a coordinated, sustained air campaign. But then we eventually had to send in ground troops as peacekeepers because that would work. They were there was the people in the former Yugoslavia, so Kosovo, Serbia, Croatia, all those people were going to be at each other's throats, and you needed NATO ground forces there to stand in between all of these people. So no matter what, we're going to need ground troops if we want this to end in any sort of satisfactory manner. If Trump just declares victory and walks away, that is possibly the worst outcome for this, because you're going to have an entrenched, further radicalized Iranian government, further militant. So all of the people in Iran that are like, maybe we should negotiate with the Americans, they've been completely discredited. All of the protesters that were going at it the end of 2025 and into January 2026, they were slaughtered by the tens of thousands. So they might be more understandably hesitant to take to the streets again. If we don't send in ground troops, then Iran's going to be more radicalized and more authoritarian, and they're just going to be far more entrenched than they were at the start. So yeah, some of their rockets are going to be gone, but if we don't go in with ground troops, they're just going to rebuild all of those military capabilities that we just blew up. So if you go down, the thing about, I don't know how many people are aware of the geography. So that jut of land sticking up into Bandar Abbas, that's the Strait of Hormuz. So you can see how close that is. Now we have had, I've mentioned before that operating close to the ground, an aircraft operating close to the ground, that's very dangerous because you have man-portable anti-aircraft missiles. We call them man pads, like the famous American Stinger that's been around for decades. We sent a lot of those to Ukraine and brought down many Russian aircraft with them. But they're all over the place. They exist by the millions on the world right now. But American jets along this coastline have been operating very close to the ground, well within MADPAD range, and nothing's happening to them. But that doesn't mean that we can control the ground. So if we want to actually control the Strait of Hormuz, goes back again to Trump asking for naval ships. I'm like, what's that going to do? If you don't take the ground and prevent Ukraine from actually going into the Strait of Hormuz and harassing ships, hold on. Sorry, dry throat there. Hopefully people are understanding my point. You got to take the ground, otherwise Iran's just going to keep doing it. The Karg Island is a bit further northwest here. That's where most of the Iranian oil goes out of, but you can also see that Iran juts out past the Strait of Hormuz, and there's another port out there that's not on this map that's one of the common exports for Russia. You can see at the top the Caspian Sea, that borders Russia. Russia would often send its oil through the Caspian Sea and through Iran, and then one of the ports that were left out of was actually outside of the Strait of Hormuz. But if you go further south there, and this map probably doesn't have the detail, if you see Shiraz there,
Yep.
if you go directly west, there's this tiny little speck in the Persian Gulf. If you can see that right there, that is Karg Island that we recently attacked. That is the main export hub for Iranian oil. Ironically, the Americans built this port before the Ayatollah took over. We built this, I think, in the 1960s, because otherwise most of the ports of Iran are not deep enough for the big oil tankers, and this offshore was able to accommodate the big oil tankers. So that's why that's the export hub. We took out most of the military stuff there. We're about to send I believe the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit that has roughly 2,500 Marines embarked. They should be there soon, within the next couple of days. And my money is they're going to take that island. Because we talk about the Straits of Hormuz being closed, and Qatar and the Saudis and the Kuwaitis and the Iraqis can't get their oil out. Iran is still exporting its oil. The ships that are going through the Straits of Hormuz are Iranian, and Iran is still selling its oil on the global market and making the money and all that kind of stuff. Taking that island would be one of the first steps that you would use ground troops for, and I think we have to do it. As much as I hate this war, if we stop now, then it's going to be worse than before we started.
So that gets us to why again. Why did this happen?
I mean, you can give reasons. I mean, we've covered this before the last time I was here. I mean, Iran's not a good people. Fanatics with nuclear weapons is not a combination that you want. We can talk about American religious fanatics with nuclear weapons. That's a separate topic. Pete Hegseth. But the Iranians with nukes are bad. We severely degraded their nuclear program last summer. They were evidently within 10 days of producing their first nuclear weapon when we attacked. That I don't think they've reconstituted, but we've further degraded their nuclear program in these attacks. But again, why now?
Yeah, very good question. And I'm going to show you a headline.
We certainly haven't articulated a reason, because Trump's been all over the map. And sometimes what Trump says and what Rubio says and what Pete Hegseth say are mutually contradictory. So I'm not even sure what the American government under Trump actually thinks, because I've got the president, the secretary of state, and the secretary of defense all telling me something different. And sometimes President Trump will say something one day and say something different that's contradictory the next day, and then say yet a third thing the following day. And I have no idea why they invaded.
And I have been hearing rumblings about this. U.S. troops told war on Iran was all part of God's divine plan, Watchdog alleges. I understand there have been something like 200 complaints. Religious freedom group says 200 troops sent complaints of superiors using extremist Christian rhetoric to justify war. And I'm highlighting this because the other night we did this
scary version.
Yeah, we did this program about Pete Hegseth, the religious, what do you call it, ceremony, I guess, at the Pentagon. Which
whatever
raised some
worship or prayer
concerns.
services they've been holding. And that's evidently been a regular thing in Pete Hegseth's Pentagon.
Yeah, Christ Church, Pastor Doug Wilson, concerns about, allegations of religious extremism.
Mhm.
And,
So I
yeah.
think the one I listened to the one about Pete Hegseth's church. I was doing something else, so I didn't actually watch it, but I did listen to it. And I listened to Pete Hegseth being one of the people that was leading the worship service, which is way out of line. If I was one of the people that witnessed that, I would have been pissed. And I'm trying to control my language here. So, salty veteran, you can imagine some of the language that might fly out of my mouth. And not only that, I was a sergeant, so I wasn't even an officer. And officers are, more controlled in their language. Yeah, somebody would have gotten an earful if I had witnessed that when I was actually in uniform and wearing my stripes. So, yeah, that was way out of line. He's not a chaplain. He's not a civilian preacher. He is the Secretary of Defense. He has a job, and none of that involves leading prayer for the people that are under his command. And when I say that military members in the United States serve a far more restrictive legal code, they do. They give up many rights, certainly the rights of personal liberty. Their freedom of speech is severely curtailed. In many ways, their rights to free expression of religion are also curtailed. However, you have controls on. Yeah, I don't need to watch it again.
Yeah, I'm just bringing it up so you can see
Yeah.
the headlines here from the various news organizations and the way that, depending on the news organization, the way it's described. Pete Hegseth leads Pentagon in prayer to King Jesus. That's Breitbart. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth hosts amazing Christmas worship service at the Pentagon. That's it from before. But this is the one with Doug Wilson and panel. Should Christian nationalists preach at the Pentagon? And that is the question, right?
Yeah. So the civilian preachers, especially if they're part of their chaplains, have certain rights. But this is why I'm saying that Pete Hegseth is not a chaplain. He is the Secretary of Defense. And yes, his legal title remains the Secretary of Defense. Secretary of War is just their attempt at branding, using their chosen name to maybe reflect their personal identity. I'm making fun of their being against trans people changing their names because he changed his name to Secretary of War, which is not his name. So he is the Secretary of Defense, but that means he has very real legal and moral authority over the people under his command. And if you start doing this religion while acting as the Secretary of Defense, it creates a command influence that's completely improper. We're talking abuse of office, abuse of authority, violation of his oath of office. There's all sorts of problems that come up here. And there's a reason why these things are forbidden, and that is because the people under his command come from all walks of life, all religions and no religion at all, and they expect their leaders to lead properly, to lead without bias of whatever religion you came from. But this creates an undue command influence where you've got Pete Hegseth up there preaching his very particular brand of fundamentalist Christianity, and that is by far a minority in the United States military, and it's just not what most of the people under his command are. So if you don't agree with his particular brand of religion, but you're still under his command, and maybe he has the power to promote you or court-martial you or give you less official punishments, less than court-martial. We call them non-judicial punishments that are very real. They can prevent promotions. They can have all sorts of nasty effects on you. But then you can see where this is coming in, where it's a real problem, where you've got people under his command that just aren't going to trust him. the restrictions on religious free expression get more restrictive the higher rank you have. And in the military, you can't have a higher rank than Secretary of Defense.
And I believe that is the First Amendment, right?
This is the First Amendment, but you have to remember that the United States military works under a more restrictive version of this. But when you're talking about Congress shall make no law respecting establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, one of the rights that you retain as a military member is the right of free expression in some capacity. So you can go to the church that you want if you have the time available. But as the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth isn't just your average private in the Army or civilian government worker. He is what this amendment is prohibiting, his actions of establishing a religion. That's why I'm saying the undue command influence. His actions of leading these prayer services constitute an establishment of religion by the Secretary of Defense inside of the United States military. That's why I'm saying it's an abuse of office and a violation of his oath of office, because he swore to support and defend the Constitution.
Interesting, because before we came on, I was listening to a couple of retired generals who were talking about Islam and the need to get all of the radical Islamists out of the United States. But the way they were speaking about it, they were using language I've heard many times, which is they're suggesting Islam is not a religion, it is an ideology. And I'm thinking they're framing it that way so that they get away with
They're playing
waging a holy war by saying oh no, we're not doing it because we're against their religion, we're against their politics and their radicalization through ideology, not religion. Am I picking up on the nuances there and the justification?
I did not listen to what they said. So the way that you're framing it is, if they are indeed saying that we need to get rid of every Muslim in the United States, or every Muslim that's wearing a United States military uniform, and there are a lot of them, then that is, and if they're trying to play the game of it's not a religion, it's an ideology or whatever semantic BS that they're doing, they're playing games and trying to go around the First Amendment, and it's what legally or logically you would call pretextual arguments. They want to wage their religious war while pretending that they're not. That's the impression that I'm getting. However, I did not listen to what they actually said.
Sure, and I don't, we don't want to go down that road too far tonight, so I'm not going to play the clip or even name the names, but this is rhetoric I've heard before, and it just
me too. Yes,
and it alarms me because it reminds me so much of the Red Scare here in Canada. Japanese internment camps during World War II. People become fearful of particular groups because there's a war on and that's the enemy, and you can't trust that person because of the color of their skin, or they came from this place, or that's their religion. And the next thing you know, you have people in concentration camps or something, right? So I think we have to be very mindful of these things and not let our paranoia and or the political propaganda or rhetoric or just the fear get the better of us.
And there have been Muslims in the United States since the start. There were some relatively famous members of George Washington's army that were Muslim. There was one of the first wars that we fought was against the Barbary pirates on the coast of North Africa. I'd like to say it was the late 1790s, early 1800s, but I'd have to look at the dates. This is contrasting with Pete Hegseth's, Crusader cross tattoo, his Deus Vult, the God wills it thing, which, by the way, is the exact same sentiment as the radical Islamist Inshallah, which is as God wills it. but just in, a different language.
Yeah.
And that's one of the battle cries for Islamic terrorists. It's the same thing that Pete Hegseth has tattooed. So it's like the same sentiment, just different religion. But the Barbary Pirates War, we had something called the Treaty of Tripoli. And in the United States, under the Constitution, I'd like to say it was Article 6, but I'd have to look it up. Whatever part of the Constitution talks about how American treaties work, how treaties work inside of America. So if we negotiate a treaty and then the Senate ratifies it and then the president signs the treaty, so that treaty becomes enacted. Under the Constitution, that treaty becomes U.S. law. So it is not just a treaty, it is now U.S. law, which under the Constitution, the president and everybody is obligated to follow because of their oath of office and all that. Mm-hmm. The Treaty of Tripoli says that the United States was in no sense or shape or form founded upon the Christian religion, because the various religions that had been persecuted by state religions in pre-revolutionary Europe, so Catholic France or the mixed bag that was Germany or Anglican British Empire. We had all sorts of sub state level sects, so the Baptists and the Calvinists and whatever came to the United States to get away from state-run religions, to get away from these established religions. This is core to the American ideal that we can't have people in power saying this is the religion that you must follow. That is completely anti everything that we stand for. It violates the law because that treaty is still a law of the land. And yeah, it's just the stuff about Pete Hegseth and the movement that he represents in large part inside of the U.S. government and the U.S. military is very disturbing to me.
And brings us back to these complaints. This is the Guardian reporting on this story. U.S. military commanders have been invoking extremist Christian rhetoric about biblical end times to justify involvement in the Iran war to troops, according to complaints made by a watchdog group. The Military Religious Freedom Foundation says
Mikey
it has
Weinstein's
received.
Group. Mm-hmm. The guy that leads that group is Mikey Weinstein. He's an Air Force veteran.
Okay, so how serious is this?
It's been building for a while. The fact that we have a Secretary of Defense that subscribes to this, and because he's leading these prayers and giving cover to people at lower levels of command spreading this, is troublesome. But we still have significant portions of the military where this is just completely not okay. Mm-hmm. If you talk to a World War II veteran, they would be saying, look, I could give... My sergeant's colorful language is starting to come back. I don't care what the person next to me believes religion wise. It just doesn't matter. And if they start bringing it up and spouting off, they might get a lot of pushback from the people around them because it's just bang out of line. We have a job to do. It's the military job, and religion has nothing to do with it. And it can only distract people and make people that should be colleagues, comrades, and brothers and sisters into, people that hate each other. And it's destructive to the United States military at its very core.
And yet the other night when we were doing the broadcast about Pete Hegseth and the church that he's a member of, protecting, shielding these convicted pedophiles, the information and while processing the story, that process brought us all the way around to the end of the broadcast, where I ended up asking myself, is this why this war has been prosecuted? Is it like on some level some sort of a religious thing? Is it a holy war of some kind for Trump, where Hegseth is Trump appeasing or throwing a bone to Pete Hegseth and his, far right-wing extremist religious, that part of the base that he's gets a lot of support from? It's a question that inevitably came up because of all the information that was before us that night.
So in one of the things that that's wrapped up in this is the notion of what's known as Christian Zionism, and I had to look this up just to make sure that I got the term right because it's been a little bit. But Christian Zionism is a movement among the most fundamentalist right-wing Christians that they support the state of Israel, but not to support the state, the concept that Israel has a right to exist and there should be a Jewish homeland, especially, after the World War II. Instead, the reason that they support Israel is not to have a peaceful homeland. It's because the modern gathering in Israel fulfills biblical prophecy and heralds in the end times. So they are looking to instigate their understanding of biblical apocalypse. They think that the turmoil in the Mideast surrounding Israel is a good thing, and all of these deaths and attacks and bombings are a good thing from their point of view. Now, how much that played into this attack, I'm uncertain. Like I said, between Iran helping Russia inside Ukraine and 47 years of terrorism and their several decades of cyber war against the West, including the United States, how much did this sort of Christian Zionism play into it, or religious war between Christians with his Crusader cross, Christians and Islam? I don't know. Sorry to be non-committal.
But, it's just.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's a little bit terrifying, but I don't know what extent that is true.
And maybe coincidentally, I've seen just in the last couple of days other prominent live streams touching on this very subject.
Yes.
And well, I guess in part because you're getting these complaints, right?
You got these complaints. You got the words out of Hegseth's mouth. You've got various
ceremony.
You got various retired military folks that subscribe to this in the past. I even have a sibling who's retired Air Force who buys into this stuff. And so it's been there for a while. A lot of these churches set up shop in Colorado Springs, which is just outside of the Air Force Academy, and they consciously chose that location in the effort to infiltrate the Air Force Academy. The whole thing about Charlie Kirk and now Erica Kirk being on the United States Air Force Academy board of directors. I can't remember the title, but it's like this civilian advisory board to the military academy. And you've got Charlie Kirk and Erica Kirk had exactly no expertise or reason to be on this board, except for their religion and their political partisan bent, their MAGA bona fides.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And loosely, related, it's more of a segue than anything. Here in Canada tonight, there's this story going, well, it's gaining traction. I think more on the Maple MAGA side of the equation.
MAGA. Nice.
There's this. I'm sorry for. I'm not sorry. I'm just going to warn you. I'm taking a different position on this as I present this information to you tonight. I know. It's Commie Canada and Commie Carney, and this is the hate speech bill coming home to roost and blah blah blah. But I'm going to share a different perspective with you on this tonight. Toronto police came to the door of this lady, Nicole Miske. I believe Miske is her last name, because of some comments she posted online about Canada's Prime Minister, Mark Carney. And so because of this video of police at her door, this is going viral.
Well, there's some allegations that you've made some online posts to the Prime Minister of Canada. Do you have anything to say about that?
Can you be more specific? What post? What I specifically said? Do you have a screenshot?
Yeah, you specifically said, and you made it online.
Well, because, he's a Zionist scumbag, and he's not my prime minister, so
Okay.
But really, you're going to come to my door and you're worried that I'm going to do something? Do I seriously look like a threat to you?
So that's why we came to talk, right? So those threats are made.
You know what? You guys should be busy taking care of actual real crime than standing here harassing me over fucking shit I say online.
I understand, but
okay,
you
yeah,
shouldn't be
no.
saying that.
Don't be wasting tax dollars doing this bullshit.
Nicole, if such behavior continues, if there is a
what are you going to do? Put me in jail
so
because I don't like our prime minister?
No, but if you made some threats that are concerning...
What kind of threats did I make? You still haven't shown me what I said.
You're talking over me, man. I'm trying to explain to you what the threats
Show me
are.
what I said.
So if those threats are continuing...
Show me what I said.
Right? You could be arrested and charged. Just want to let you know.
Communist Canada. How do you like working for that? Are you proud of yourself? Do you go back home and look at your family in the mirror and say, this is what you do for a living? You harass people for what they say online because I don't like our stupid prime minister and he's a Zionist scumbag?
You can have your opinion. You cannot...
Whatever.
So
I don't have to discuss anymore with this.
So listen,
excuse me, don't touch my door.
That's what I'm letting you know. So if
don't touch my door.
We will put a report in. It's documented. If such behavior continues, the Toronto
blah 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 blah. I will say whatever the fuck I want about our prime minister. You can't stop my speech. Sorry. Yeah, exactly.
Be threatening. That's all I'm asking you.
What you say is threatening. I say is just words. Okay. Have a nice day. Goodbye now. Bye now.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
I'd be curious what she actually did say, but
that's the point, Mike. That's the point. What did she actually say?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing all these posts online with people saying they're showing us all that, but I'm telling you guys.
You have a list. Do you have what she actually did say?
No, that's the point.
Uh-huh.
So now you have this whole. It's kind of a knee-jerk reaction campaign to this, right?
Yeah.
This video is going viral. This is the video that is being played, and they're saying just because she called the prime minister a scumbag Zionist,
they wouldn't.
I don't know about that. I think maybe it's what we're not being shown that might really be.
Yeah, calling Carney a scumbag or whatever is not going to bring the police to your door.
No.
Threatening to harm the prime minister or so we have this problem in America too, where they talk about free speech, but none of our rights are absolute. And it's the whole thing about your rights end where your rights end where my nose begins.
Yeah.
So if you swing your fist and you hit my nose, then your right to swing your fist has now been curtailed because now I have a problem with you.
And see, we do have new hate speech legislation in Canada, and it is directed at what's going on online. But nevertheless, I'm telling you, the cops are not going to come to your door. Just like I can sit here and say, Justin Trudeau sucked as prime minister, right? Mark Carney's better. I would take anybody. Like, I'm just saying, okay? You can say, I've said it many times, but the cops never show up on my front door. Mm-hmm. So, but I've seen the cops show up on other people's front steps because they have said things that are threats, can be taken
threat of
as
violence,
threats,
threat of death.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, here, I think we should, one, be careful before you start throwing support behind somebody who, like, and also, how many times have I told everyone in our Maverick family here, be careful what you say online. Mm-hmm. Be careful what you say, period, because it can and will be used against you if you say something wrong.
Since we're on the topic of Islam, and I've talked about my post 9/11 military service, the legal definition and the working definition inside of the military to identify what is actually terrorism is the threat or use of violence to affect a political outcome. So if you're threatening violence or actually carrying out violence in the support of any sort of political ideology, that is the definition of terrorism.
Yes.
Put that out there.
Yeah, it's and you can't have it both ways because some of the same people I've seen criticizing this have also been critical of the police response in or lack of police response in Tumbler Ridge, where we had the mass shooting at the school because there wasn't an adequate response or a quick enough response, and OpenAI didn't report the information on the shooter when they knew that this person was being radicalized online. And so you can't have it both ways. You can't, on the one hand, say, why didn't you do something about this surveillance? And why didn't you do something about what was being said and what you knew was going on online? And then over here say, well, don't respond to this person. That's free speech. So,
Well, and that's
it's,
why I mentioned I was wondering what she actually did say, because there's a lot of people online saying a lot of things,
yep.
and not everything that could be construed as a threat of violence or harm to somebody else, or threat to a political figure,
Yeah.
is going to be investigated. There's not enough police or hours in the day. So
that's the
what
first.
what she said to bring 2 police to her door must have set off alarm bells somewhere, and it must have been pretty bad.
You'd think so. I can't find it. It's been scrubbed. She took it down.
Well,
So-
that's at least smart of her.
Yes. And so, bottom line here is don't say stupid things, especially if you don't mean them, right? Because it will get you into trouble. It can. I know, like in the United States, I think the response would be even more severe. If you make a threat against the president,
And there's threats against judges, threats against members of Congress, threats against various people, including the president, the last several presidents. And those are all investigated. And well, not all of them, but they scrub online profiles. If you're in the military, you have to be double careful about your online profile, because you can get in trouble for things that civilians have every right to say.
yeah.
But free speech is never free. It just can't be. If we want to live in a civilized society, this free speech is never going to be 100% free, and that's the bare fact of it.
And every government engages in some degree of censorship or media manipulation, media control. People here, of course, using this to throw out that word communism again all over the place just because of the hate speech law. You can have your views on it, but I'm just saying that Trump is involved in a lot of media manipulation and control as well. They're in the process of shifting ownership of some of these media giants to Trump-friendly companies, and
I'd like to point out that the church that Hegseth goes to, I sent you that thing about Seven Mountains Dominionism, is that one of their religious goals is to dominate things like the media, the news and the entertainment, the movie industry.
Yep.
I don't think they'll succeed. I think there's too many of us that want nothing to do with whatever sort of news and entertainment they'd be producing, because that just doesn't interest me. But
so and so with all of that, Mike, kind of bring us home here. Where are we at after this discussion? And is there hope? And what's the way out of this mess?
So let's talk about something positive. Let's talk about the war in Ukraine.
Okay.
Just so you know,
it does seem
how
at this
weird
point it does.
It
at least that one seems to have some basis in like we know kind of why we're there, right?
Yeah. So and Canada, as opposed to the United States, is still giving some pretty serious help to Ukraine. I believe Canada just handed over some actual serious equipment. I don't remember exactly what it was, but the email that I sent, there is let's start with the bad and go to the good. It would have been a picture of text that had some highlighting in it.
Oh yeah, okay, I've got it.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and
actually, you know what? Maybe what we can do is take a very short break,
Sure.
and then come back and we'll dig into this.
Okay. This I know I was looking at the time. This won't take nearly as long as the rest of it has.
No problemo. Okay, we'll be right back after this. Don't go away. We'll be back right after these messages.
Brightleaf Innovations is excited to offer our newest investment opportunity, the Turn Easy Bed Storage Solution.
Turns with a touch, spins all the way around. Every little thing you need is easy to be found. No more clutter, no more mess on the floor. Just spin it, reach it, you don't search anymore. Turn Easy Bed, spin your world around. Storage made simple, the best you found. Shelves your way, keep the mess away. Charge it, store it, night or day. Custom shelves for your books or your tech. Cozy space for your treasures to protect. Built-in power when you need to recharge. Smart design that makes your bedroom feel large. Turn Easy Bed, spin your world around. Storage made simple, the best you found. Shelves your way, keep the mess away. Charge it, store it, night or day.
Designed and developed by Brightleaf Innovations. Proudly Canadian and patent pending in North America. Turn Easy Bed transforms how you live.
To learn more about this innovative new product idea, an exciting investment opportunity, call 519-784-0222 or visit brightleafinnovations.com.
All right, we're back. And let's get that map up here.
We can do a map. Let's start out with the text.
Sure.
So it looks like the Trump led Ukraine peace talks are on hold. Trump put delayed indefinitely the next meeting. I think Trump is getting tired of it. But Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has, he's always been one of the main mouthpieces. He was, where was he? He was in Kenya recently. And he started spouting off on what at least if you're paying attention to what's going on, what you already knew, where Russia has all of these maximalist demands of Ukraine. Their demands of things that Russia has been unable to accomplish on the battlefield. They want to win the war while they're not winning the war, if that makes sense. And so he wants Ukraine, ironically, to recognize the realities on the ground, where the reality on the ground is Ukraine is actually starting to win. He wants all of the Donbass ceded to Russia. Russia has not been able to conquer the Donbass yet. He keeps talking about various parts of Ukraine that can no longer exist. One of the things is they would be unwilling to accept foreign peacekeeping troops on Ukrainian soil. And what this means is that they want to have power over Ukraine without admitting that they want Ukraine to be under their power. They want to be able to make all of the national judgments for Ukraine. So the occupying any sort of European peacekeeping troops Russia would view as occupying forces, which means Ukrainian government would not have the right to request foreign troops on its soil, which means that any sort of Ukraine in the Russian view would not be a free nation. What else did I want to hit? The root causes, to reiterate Maximus' demands, talking about NATO expansion again, Ukrainian neutrality, demilitarization, which would reduce Ukrainian forces below the level that they would be capable of defending Ukraine with. and then get rid of the government. They want elections, but the only electional result that they would accept would be a pro-Russian puppet government. And this is just what Russia's been stating the entire time. So for more than a year now, where Trump said, no, I can make peace in Ukraine in a day, that's easy, and I can't understand why Biden couldn't do it. Well, he's been trying to do it for 14 months now, and we are no closer to peace in Ukraine because Trump has no idea what's going on. So if you want to go to one of those maps, it doesn't really matter. Any of them would be fine.
Okay.
This is one I've mentioned before, that the front lines are complicated. So this is near Konstantinivka, in the eastern part of the combat zone, and you can see just how weird this got. Can you zoom out just a little bit? Maybe it wasn't on this map. No, it wasn't on this map. I'm so sorry. But you can see where I talk about how the
this one.
No, that's all right. Go back to the other one, where I've talked about how complicated this is, where you've got various claims, and you can see where those striped regions that Russia's claiming that they're doing it, but then you've got blue regions that are behind those regions, which are we've been able to verify that those are successful Ukrainian advances, and you can just see how this is just bubbling and complicated on the front line, and so it gets complicated. Just so you know. Go to the next map.
Okay, this one.
Yeah, this one will work. So this is one of the most important parts of the front line, where you've got Russia trying to attack and Ukraine trying to attack in various places. Sometimes there's no advancement, sometimes there's very minor advancement. This is a very major Ukrainian advance that this has all happened since January, where Ukraine has gained roughly 400 square miles of territory. They have regained it. So all of that blue territory used to be under Russian occupation, and Ukraine has pushed the Russian forces back since January. The result of this is that Russia has been having problems keeping their military supplied, not just in beans and bullets, but also in soldiers. They're having problems getting Russian soldiers to the fronts in large enough numbers to replace their losses. And I did mention that the Russian military has lost more soldiers in Ukraine than they've been able to train and send new soldiers in. And that's been new in 2026, that Ukraine's been able to manage that. This serious advancement, this is in the south. This is near Zaporizhia. Just south of this blue would be a city called Hulayapol. It's not on the map. That is one of the Russia's previous major advancements. But Russia's been shuffling troops from different parts of the front, because with Ukraine advancing this much and this quickly, Russia's like, well, maybe we should send more troops there to shore it up. And so this has robbed other Russian attempts at advancement of the forces necessary to advance. And Ukraine continues to advance because what Russia did here is they failed to consolidate their gains by building defensive lines behind where their frontline soldiers were. So Ukraine was able to just roll it back up. They're still not running into fortified Russian defensive lines, and now Russia's throwing more soldiers in there. What this means is it's going to really mess up the Russian ability to continue their other advances, but once the muddy season in Ukraine stops, so starting in April-ish is the normal time of year that you'd be able to conduct what they would call the spring-summer offensive season in this part of the world. Russia has not been able to build up forces like they had in previous years for a spring and summer offensive. So what this means is that Russia might not be able to conduct one this year, or it might be so severely delayed that it's just not going to be able to do much. So yeah, Ukraine is pushing Russia on the battlefield. There's some higher level numbers where Russia has about 700,000 soldiers inside Ukraine. Ukraine has roughly 900,000 soldiers, maybe up to 1 million. That's a little bit not apples to apples, because Ukraine has to keep a lot of their soldiers guarding the border of Belarus, because if you remember in 2022, a lot of Russian soldiers came south out of Belarus. So there's significant numbers of Ukrainian soldiers guarding parts of the border that are not currently active combat zones. And so, but what the forces along the line of contact, along the combat frothing front line moving this way in that zone, they're roughly equal at this point. And so the situation is starting to turn towards the Ukrainians finally.
It has been a harsh winter. I was listening to reports, about what the conditions are like on the front lines, and in some cases minus 25, barely any heat for the guys on the front line. It's brutal.
And for the civilians in back. So one of my closest Ukrainian friends, he was a frontline soldier in the initial stages. He was conscripted into ad hoc infantry to win the Battle of Kiev, February to April in 2022, and then he went back to his civilian jobs. He was conscripted into frontline service May of 2024, but the building he was sleeping in July of 2025 was hit by a Russian rocket and collapsed on top of him, and he was pinned. He was eventually taken out of the rubble, and he still has all of his limbs. They caught it soon enough, but he has severe nerve damage from the waist down that he's still recovering from. He will recover, but it'll take some time. But he's back in Kyiv with his family. But they didn't have power a lot of these nights, so I managed to get him a significant power bank that he can power all the mobile devices, heat a water kettle off of, and then some solar cells to charge the power bank just in case in the daylight hours they don't have power. He can continue to get that thing powered up. But yeah, it's been rough on civilians too.
And you mentioned the peace talks being put on hold. I was reviewing material last night. Macron is making missiles available for, I think, testing some sort of a new missile system. Similar to the Patriot system to Ukraine. I think that's what it is. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
So France has a separate stream of this is one of the reasons why France giving Ukraine the Mirage 2000 jets was a big deal, because France has its own domestic stream of rocket technology, missile technology, and this includes an air defense. It's certainly on missiles you can mount on a jet, but it also includes ground-based air defenses. So yeah, that is a big deal, because it's a completely separate technology stream, has exactly nothing to do with American technology. It doesn't require the Trump administration to sign off on it. So for instance, if Germany wants to give their Patriot missiles to Ukraine, you need American approval to do that. The French tech, there's nothing. It's just France's decision to do that.
Yeah, and we didn't even get to this is about Iran, so we'll leave that maybe for a last comment tonight. I do want to mention something going on in Hungary tonight as it relates to this as well. Everything keeps going back to Iran, and the tankers and the oil. Was there anything else about Ukraine you wanted to highlight here? Anything else that you sent me?
That's probably enough. I mean, there's always more that you could talk about. It's complicated, and there's all sorts of stuff going on.
Yeah. So, well, let me highlight a couple of these things. I'm going to come over here first. Just somebody messaging me maybe about tomorrow night. The Viktor Orban. This is actually tied into this. There's an election happening in Hungary,
and
it
looks like Orban's about to lose, which is shocking.
Yeah, I would say so. And so some very interesting things happening with the campaign, and it involves Ukraine. So first of all, let me show you this.
Oh, well, he's running against Zelensky. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, not so. He's not running against Zelensky, but he's invoking Zelensky
But
and
that's
Ukraine.
his campaign. It's
Yeah,
like
yes.
it's like Zelensky's his opponent, not the other.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's somewhat significant. And they seem to be using a lot of AI. Now, people are saying this is real. I think this is AI because it looks so much like other videos that I'm seeing. Like, I look at this,
Where's this
and
supposed to be?
Orban has been, we know that he has been using AI videos to boost his campaign online. You tell me, like, I think this is AI because as crisp as it all is, it's maybe too crisp. All the flags look too crisp to me. The crowd is packed in so densely that it just looks to me like it's just too.
Is this in
filled.
Budapest?
Where is it supposed to be? Just says Hungary.
Okay.
And it says nationalism should rise all across Europe, save the West. I think this is AI. Now, it looks really good. It might be real. Hard to tell when I'm looking at it, but
Yeah. The other thing, and I witnessed this when I was in Serbia, even if you see a real life crowd this big, it's really common for these people like Orban and I never can pronounce the Serbian leader's name properly. But they have what you call rent-a-crowds, where they just go into places and say, look, I'll give you $20 if you walk down the street with this flag in your hand.
yeah.
And a lot of people need the money, so they do it. And so even if you saw a crowd like this in Hungary, the chances that it is either entirely or in large part a rent-a-crowd is pretty high chance.
Just doesn't look really real to me. And the reason it raises my suspicion is because whenever there's some big political event, or especially when they're trying to get people jacked up for protests and stuff, I see videos like this, and these kinds of crowd shots where everything is so packed in, dense all the way, no gaps. I don't see any police there for crowd control.
Sure.
So just a lot of things just make it suspect. Just an interesting tidbit for you tonight.
Well, and it just might be him trying to pretend that he has a support because the indications are that he's losing.
Exactly. And he's trying to, as you say, run against Zelensky. And he posted this video this week.
Well, he's still mad because in January of 2026, the contract. So one of the greatest ironies of the Ukraine war is that there were pipelines running from Russia to Europe, and that includes to Hungary as one of the main customers, that were delivering Russian oil and gas to these countries, and they were running through Ukraine. So while Ukraine is at war with Russia, there was a Russian pipeline delivering Russian oil through Ukraine to places like Hungary. And so one of those contracts ran off and Ukraine just shut down the pipeline. We're like, the contract's done. There's no new contracts. The pipeline's shut down. And that really made...
Hello.
And this appears to be some sort of performance where he is accusing Ukraine of threatening both him and his family in some sort of an attempt to generate sympathy in the last days of this political campaign.
Merre vagy? Szia, drága Sárikám. Drága forráskám, édesapád vagyok. Figyelj, biztos látni fogod majd a hírekben, hogy az ukránok megfenyegettek most már nem csak engem, hanem titeket is.
I can't understand him, but
yeah, that's got propaganda.
Csak azért hívok, hogy ne ijedj meg.
But this phone call, some people are saying it appears to be staged, in part because of the way he introduces himself on the phone to I think it's his daughter. It's like hello, it's Viktor Orban or something to that effect, right?
And as annoying as Hungary is, Zelensky's got bigger fish to fry than threatening Orban. I can only imagine that there's a million things that are on Zelensky's daily to-do list that he doesn't get to that are far more important than trying to harass Viktor Orban.
Yeah,
it strikes me as one of those "don't you know how important I think I am" moments from Viktor Orban.
Well, maybe
I'm a legend in my own mind.
Maybe you should get Tucker Carlson to go back over and do another interview to boost his campaign.
Well, it depends on if Tucker Carlson will get him to do that, that light therapy on Orban's private part.
Yeah, a little testicle tanning goes a long way to boost
your
campaign.
show. I didn't use the words.
Oh my God. Oh wow. Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh.
It increases your masculinity. That's what Tucker was claiming.
Yeah. Oh, and Linda has just sent me a message. She said, just ask Grok if the video is real. Actually, I already did. And I got mixed messages, mixed answers back on that video.
Well, and like I said, even if it's not AI generated, the chances that it's still not real, that it is a rent-a-crowd in part or even entirely, is there's a high chance of that.
Yeah. Also, a headline here: Ottawa to fight ruling that pandemic actions went too far. Ottawa is appealing a court ruling saying its use of emergency powers during the Freedom Convoy went too far. Yeah. Well, I knew that appeal was going to come because the court ruled, saying that the way that Trudeau used the Emergencies Act was not constitutional. It was improper, which I think is. I don't know anymore. I don't know. So we'll see how that plays out. And some people won't like me saying that either. But with more information, which has come out over the past few years, I'm not so sure anymore.
Facts do matter. So the problem comes when people place too much emphasis on their ideology and their dogmatism than they do on facts and reality.
Yeah. And we do live in a democracy with the rule of law, and even the government has the right to appeal a court decision. So let's let it play out, and we'll see where we end up, I guess. Yeah. Oh, and one other thing here tonight, too. We did this big thing with this friend of ours on separatism. And we're supposed to do a second broadcast tomorrow night. And he's messaging me, more loyal. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, it looks like it's still a go. So tomorrow night, Goodbye Canada, Making the Case for Alberta Separatism, Part 2.0 with Brandon Pringle, which should be interesting. Maybe we can get the broadcast a little more focused on the issue that we were supposed to be talking about, not like last night. But it was still fun.
Yeah.
Last night. And with that, I'll throw it over to you, Mike, for any final thoughts or anything else you might want to draw our attention to tonight before we sign off. Have we covered all the bases?
I mean, there's always more to talk about, but I think what we should remember, because it's you and I talking, it's people listening, but there's all sorts of things that need to be done. And we've talked about fear and how fear drives people. We've talked about ideology trumping facts. If there's something that you and I and the listeners should take, is that there's always room for you to actually do something, to build something, to be constructive, to go help somebody. I mentioned my friend didn't have power. I helped him get a power bank. There's soldiers I know that don't have uniforms. I help them get boots and cold weather clothing. If there's somebody that needs some help, you don't have to sit in fear. You don't have to just listen and be a passive participant. You can actually do something. You can help somebody. You can try and build something constructive, make something better at the end of the day than where you started. That is something that all of us should keep in the back of our minds. That should motivate us going forward, that we don't have to be passive, just observers of the situation. We can go in there and make things better.
Yeah. That's right. Always use your superpowers for good, never for evil, Mavericks. And with that, I will be back tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern, with our separatist friend, Brandon Pringle, on the flip side. See you then.
There's a rumble on the highway, a shadow on the hill. Donald's back in the saddle, and he's rolling in for the kill. Elon bought him Twitter, paid $1 million a vote, said democracy's for sale, let's get this country on the road. They're betting on the truckers, revving engines loud and clear, rolling through the border, spreading chaos far and near. It's the big break, the deal you can't refuse, stacking votes with money, the whole damn thing's a ruse. Rolling through the north, now topple every crown. Trump's the king of 51, no maple leaf around. They're sending dollars up the highway, fueling big machines. A coup wrapped in a convoy, freedom painted on the scenes. Said Canada's a target, let the border start to fade. The 55th state is waiting, it's a billionaire charade. Elon's rocket shooting high while truckers storm the gates. Democracy's on clearance, it's a dystopian debate. It's the big rate, a deal you can't refuse, stacking votes with money, the whole damn thing's a ruse. Rolling through the north, now topple every crown. Trump's the king of 51, no maple leaf around. They're playing the victim, they're crying fake news, while rigging every ballot with their billion-dollar ruse. It's Putin and his Duggan, Goebbels in disguise, dictators in the spotlight, selling pain as pride. It's the big rig, the game that breaks the rules. Freedom's just a sticker on the corporate back tools. Rolling through the north, now topple every crown. Trump's the king of 51, no maple leaf around. So let the truckers roll, let the engines roar. Feed 'em lies and money, open up the coup's back door. It's Elon and it's Donald, rewriting the frontier. But the pain they leave behind will last 1,000 years. Donald, take break, yes, rolling strong. Democracy's a ghost, and the tyrants hum their song.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.